I'm Noam Sonennberg, Director of PlaneTech. We are a non-profit, a sister community of EcoMotion, a joint venture of the Israeli Innovation Institute and the Consensus Business Group. Our mission is basically to accelerate the expansion of a climate tech ecosystem, which means to have better companies, to scale them up, companies with technologies that will help humanity to reduce this about quarter of the emissions we're currently emitted, greenhouse gas emissions. And in our efforts to do that, we can see more and more large companies that are starting to put their pledges and to reduce their emissions. So first, allow me to welcome our great panelists, Ofira Rubin, Innovation Manager in Hyundai Cradle, TLV, Oren Halevi, VP of Product at Driivz, and Omri Yannay, A&D Technical Account Manager at Ansys. So as we started, climate change is here. We all feel it with extreme weather events, breaking records days of heat and floods and wildfires. And our way basically to fight climate change is to reduce our emissions, as we mentioned. The race to zero is not anymore a new thing. Half of the largest 2,000 companies in the world have pledged already for net zero. Half of them, 500 companies, already have targets to reduce 45% of their emissions by 2030. It basically means tomorrow. The transportation sector is account for a quarter, between 14 to quarter of the percentage of the emissions, and we have a lot to do. And the way to do it basically is to have to focus on efficiency, to use alternative fuels, and move away from fossil fuels engines to electric cars. So, in our panel today, we're going to focus on land mobility, and we are going to start with the race for electrifying our cars, the way we move on land. And my first questions for basically all of the panelists is what are barriers for full adoption of electric cars when we know that last year, 2023, 18% of the new cars that were sold were electric. So Ofira, would love to start with you.
Sure. So before I'll start to mention the challenges and what Hyundai is doing, I want to share a story that happened to my friend several days ago. Her son called her from the Boy Scout trip, asked her to come and pick him up because he didn't feel well. So she took her electric vehicles, and the way there was like 3 hours. And after a long drive, she saw that the battery level is on 9%. And she needed to stop in the way and charge the vehicle. So she searched in the app and saw that there is a charging station on the way. But when she got there, she saw that the fast charger, unfortunately, didn't work. So she needed to use the regular charger, which took her 2 hours until it's had enough level of battery that she will be able to continue the drive. So let's break down the challenges. I think one of the most key challenge is the battery technology. Today, the current battery technology is limited due to the energy density and the range that it can exceed. So Hyundai is working on 2 directions to solve it. One direction is to test different cell chemistry for the battery, which promises to increase the energy density and with fast charging, and also improve the safety issue. Second thing that Hyundai is working on is to reduce the weight of the vehicle and as a result extend the battery range. Another issue that we have with the battery is, of course, the cost, which is 40% out of the overall vehicle cost. So Hyundai is actively working with battery makers in order to reduce the cost and also meeting the growing demand of supplying battery. And of course, we're also working on the battery recycling and reuse of the battery, which can make the battery cost more profitable and also, of course, impact the environment. So the second challenge that we have for adopting the full electrification of cars is, of course, the infrastructure, the charging infrastructure. So today, there is still insufficient charging infrastructure. Hyundai is doing a lot of efforts to solve it. Hyundai joined forces with 6 automotive OEM in North America in order to build a vast network of at least 30,000 high-powered charging stations in North America, and basically to make it more accessible and reliable. Second thing is that we don't have enough power to supply for all the vehicles. So we are working on bidirectional charging, which is referred to the V2G, that we can recharge power from the vehicle to the grid. And I think what the third challenge that we have in the electrification is when we transition from ICE vehicle to EV, there is a significant change in all the process and all the supply chain. So what Hyundai did, it's aimed to commonize the parts to one platform, and it's called the EGMP, that we're using this to all the electric vehicles of Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis. So as I mentioned here, we are doing a lot of efforts and collaboration with governments and also other OEM and battery makers in order to make this more adoption of full electrification of cars.
Thank you very much, Ofira. It's fascinating when you think for how long we do use cars and the current infrastructure. Oren, would love to hear your insights.
Sure, and I can relate actually to Ofira's comments because they are directly in line with what Driivz is doing. So the reliability of the network is a critical thing for the success of a network. A customer that can't see the status of a charger on their map, the real status, and go and charge, that will be probably the last time he would like to use this network. Driivz is managing over 100,000 chargers in the world with very high availability of the chargers. There is a new regulation in the UK starting next year that enforce the networks to publish their uptime of the network. And the goal of this regulation is to exceed 99%, which will improve dramatically what we have today. And we hear the same things from other networks that in the world. So that's definitely will improve the trust of customers that would like to move into EVs and are scared or things that they will get stuck in the way. We have a customer in the Nordic that she said you need to understand that Driivz is an essential platform. If someone is driving in Iceland and running out of battery, they will die. So it's critical. So it's not a joke. It's becoming a critical infrastructure for the country. And to the second point, not enough energy. It's true, but there are really good solutions for that. Each vehicle has a big battery, right? And if we look at all the batteries of the vehicles, we can refer to them as what we call a VPP, a virtual power plant, or batteries on wheel, basically. So if you combine all the energy in those batteries, you can charge back the grid, you can reduce charging, you can do many things that are enforced by the utilities. And that's my third thing. You need to have the utilities and the government forcing the market to move forward. We see countries where regulation and benefits to drivers are in place with very high adoption, and on the other hand, countries where that didn't adopt this forward thinking are staying behind. So I think that's the next, or that's a big challenge that we see in the market.
Thank you very much, Omri.
First of all, I'll explain shortly what Ansys does, because not as Hyundai and Driivz, we don't have like a product that we manufacture. We have software simulations for engineering. So it's basically what engineers use to calculate if their product can endure loads, heat transfer, and everything that they want the product to perform. So what I can share is what our customer trends, what are they doing. So you talked, Ofira, about reducing weight. So customers are using Ansys to do structural optimization or parametric optimization to reduce weight. They're now implementing more additive manufacturing to reduce weight and to manufacture smaller parts. They're also changing materials. Now you can switch to sustainable materials that you can recycle. I also learned a phrase that's called downcycle. If you put like a bottle in the green bin close to your home, it's not always 100% recycled. Sometimes downcycled. It becomes a material on a lower level. And that's also okay. And you can also recognize materials that are called virgin materials that are made 100% from original ores. So it means that they didn't recycled. That's for reducing weight, and using materials. For electrification specifically, the challenges that we are seeing in customers like Bosch, Volkswagen, Volvo, they're trying to reduce the heat generation by the batteries. They're trying to improve the performance of the motors. We can run electrical simulations, heat transfer simulations, fluid simulations. All of them can reduce the amount of testing that you conduct, and then you save time. And with that, you can get to the market faster with a much more compliant or much more efficient product.
Thank you very much. Super interesting, again, when you think about the current infrastructure for how long we're used to just to go to fuel station, stuck the hose in our tank and can keep driving. It's interesting. We are moving away a bit from electrification somehow, and I'd love to, or you know what, let's stay in electrification for a second, and I want to ask Oren, with all the experience you have in Driivz, if you can share with us some more barriers in terms of the regulation and the grid, and how can we make it better?
Sure. I start with a story, which is always good. One of our customers is called ELAD. ELAD is a consortium of the DSOs in the Netherlands. And they're our customers for the last 7 or 8 years, maybe. They used to have a huge network in the Netherlands of EV chargers. And when we start talking to them, they said, no, there is no problem with the grid. There is sufficient energy. We don't need to upgrade anything. There's no need for smart energy management. That was 6-7 years ago. And in the last maybe 3 or 4 years, the Netherlands is hitting like everyone else with this barrier where you see the peak of the demand by the EVs. And there are 2 reasons for that. One is that the market is moving into a distributed energy market, which means that there is a lot of generators. It's not a single generator anymore. You have PVs, you have winds, you have many other generators that don't necessarily follow the hours, the peak hours of the EVs. So someone is coming at 5 o'clock and they want to charge. That would be the peak hour of the day, like everyone else. But PV is generating mostly at noon. So you need to somehow shift the energy between noontime and afternoon or evening where everyone wants to charge. That needs to happen with a lot of regulations because you need to have a marketplace where you buy and sell flexibility. You need to have batteries in place to store the energy at noontime and then use that at the evening. And so that would be the main thing that we know that countries need to apply. They need to push the market forward initially, then the market will adjust and work autonomically. The second thing is apply tax benefits to drivers. You see the curve of buying EVs in countries that apply tax discounts for buying electric vehicles impact the market dramatically. When you reduce those initial tax reduction, you don't see the market adoption, and that's a second thing that we think or we see in other countries assist the market to at least kickstart and have enough volume.
Thank you. Ofira, so again, moving away a little bit or beyond the classification, we know that electricity will not be the engine for all of the land transportation, and the hydrogen is counted as like the silver bullet for specifically heavy transportation. And if you can share a little bit what's the status, what Hyundai does at the moment, and what's the future of hydrogen?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy that you ask these questions since Hyundai consider green energy as the main goal and is pioneering in hydrogen and advance in all this field. Hyundai already has commercialized hydrogen fuel cell trucks and also buses, and this is already deployed globally. In Switzerland, there is a fleet of hydrogen fuel cell trucks that it's operating in real time, millions of kilometers. And also in Israel, actually, like a year ago, the Israeli authority approved to export hydrogen fuel cell trucks to Israel. And there are 2 in Bazan and in Combobil in Israel. Our plan is to have the same model as we have in Switzerland for the hydrogen fuel cell trucks and to build here the ecosystem. So in the midterm, we are aiming the mobility sector for hydrogen and focus on commercial vehicles. But in the long term, Hyundai vision is hydrogen for humanity, meaning that we want to go beyond the transportation sector, and we want to lead the hydrogen as a comprehensive energy source to everything. We are continuously building and investing in the ecosystem of hydrogen from production to storage and also fueling. Actually, Cradle Tel Aviv, one of our portfolio companies, H2 Pro, which produce green hydrogen. So we are also very active in this field.
Thank you, Ofira. Omri, maybe you can share with us a little bit about the trends that you see within your customers and users.
So definitely hydrogen is a trend that we hear all over. Hydrogen sounds amazing. You get like oxygen and hydrogen in, you get water out. That sounds like magic. The problem is that currently I think 95% of hydrogen is generated by fossil fuel. And having companies that generate it green way, like you said, that will be amazing. Because now it's currently now moving the problem to the power plant. And so the car is green, but the power plant still generate a lot of carbon dioxide. And the challenges that we see engineers around the world dealing with hydrogen is transforming it and storing it. Because hydrogen atoms are smaller, you need vessels that are more robust and they won't leak, and to prevent this leakage and auto-ignition. So hydrogen is scary, but it looks promising. But I'm optimistic because of the amount of engineers that still dealing with it. So I think the future is bright, and we have to have those options. And maybe in another industry, like the civil industry, maybe that's the future. I don't know. It's, for cars, it seems challenging. But and a car running on hydrogen can run for a longer mileage, so that's better. But storing a vessel of hydrogen in a car is somewhat scary. But I'm crossing my fingers and optimistic just because of the amount of people that are dealing with it.
Cool. So we have just like less than a minute, but I do want to ask you guys if you have especially Ofira and Oren, if you have a tip for the early stage entrepreneur in the field, challenges that they should solve. What they should do and not do, but in a sentence. Ofira?
Okay, maybe I'll start. First, I hope that all of you knows Hyundai Cradle. We are seeking all the time for innovative technologies, and we publish challenges. So if you don't know, please contact me. As for challenges, Hyundai, as an automotive leader, we are also, beyond automotive, we are also developing advanced air mobility and robotics. So I think the challenges that are, we are keep looking for innovative technology are in the field of light material and 3D printing.
Oren?
In 15 seconds or less. The tip that I give to my team as well, it's the same one. Find a real problem, and what is a real problem? A problem that the customer is willing to pay for it, and then find a solution for it. With that, everything can fall into place. There is enough money by the customers. There is a problem that you solve. I think that this is the critical path for any startup.
Amazing. So cool. So I think that it's a great sentence to finish with. So thank you very much for this panel, a fascinating discussion, and I look forward to the future. Thank you very much for the audience.